It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
All right, this next one's from David. I'm so nervous to say last names now. So this is one of the 400 Davids out there.
Well, it's, like I was okay with
his last
names.
name is Jones. It's an easy one. I got that one.
Because Stitch, you could have just stopped at Stitch, but the Stitcheroo kind of added a little element there, so I was okay with that.
All right, so he says, do you think it's a good idea to convert some portion of your tax-deferred savings before the expiration of the Trump tax cuts in 2026? So under current legislation, there's going to be some tax adjustments that are going to sunset in 2025. Should I begin doing Roth conversions now because I know that those are going to expire in 2026?
Well, the first thing, Bo, you have a saying, and I love it, so we're going to use it more often on the show now, is your money is not red, your money is not blue, your money's green.
It's green.
Always. So always, because I think everybody has a little bit of a blind spot, especially when it comes to economics, politics. You know, that stuff kind of gets in there and muddies up the water. So we get nervous, and we knew we have a new administration coming in this week, actually. Yep. So people start trying to read the tea leaves to figure out tax policy. Mm-hmm. I want you guys to hear me out on this. Politicians will say a lot while they're candidates, but once they get into office, they tend to be a lot more in the middle on things because it's just hard to change. It's hard to change this big institution. So I tell everybody, always be careful making decisions off of politics. And not that that's what David was doing, because he had a question there, and I want to make sure we focus. But I think that people need to hear that in this unique time that we're in. But I always tell people, make tax planning decisions off of current legislation. It's just like right now, I know he's currently President-elect Biden, but he'll soon be our president in the next few days. He just came out with a new stimulus proposal. We're not covering that yet because I just know that there will be a lot of back and forth. So I don't think it makes sense to get everything all worked up on it when I know there's going to be a lot of the horse trading and all the other stuff that happens in our political system. But it is one of those things. So I always tell people, with all that set up, focus on the current tax law. Politicians have a tendency to kick the can down the road. Mm-hmm. So yes, those tax policies are set to expire mid this decade. Mm-hmm. But will they? It remains to be seen, because a lot of stuff we've seen that they will kick the can down the road. So I get very nervous about people making decisions because of what could happen. Now, Bo, when we were talking, we've had this come up with clients. You had some great insight on what you should actually consider when you're making this type of decision.
Yeah, when it comes to deciding about Roth conversions, you really ought to consider more your personal situation and less about what's going on macroeconomically, because just like Brian said, we don't know what tax policy will be in 2026, but we do know what tax rates are this year, meaning you know what tax rate you're going to be in this present year. So if you are someone in a lower tax bracket and you think that, man, based on the lifestyle that I live and where, I think that rates could be going, not specifically these tax cuts, but where rates could be going and what my lifestyle is going to do, if I think it's likely that the rate I'm in right now is going to be lower than the rate that I'm going to be in the future, whether that be because of increased lifestyle, increased income, or increased taxes, then maybe, it makes sense for me to begin converting. Or maybe if I'm thinking more about estate planning and passing assets on to my children, maybe I should think about converting. I would let those types of determinations be the thing that cause you to make that decision in the present year, less so than about legislation that may or may not come to pass. So you ought to focus on what's your ultimate estate plan, what are your liquidity needs in retirement, and this is what's beautiful, and this is what we keep counseling clients on. We don't know where taxes are going to go. They could go up, down, left, right, sideways. We have no idea, and we certainly don't know when they're going to do that. So what we try to do is we have our clients focus on building these three distinct tax buckets: your tax-deferred bucket, your tax-free bucket, and your after-tax bucket. If you can do that effectively, when you get to retirement, no matter what the tax policy is at that time, you can pick and choose what you pay in taxes. Perhaps it's a high tax environment, so you're just going to pull the taxable stuff for the low amounts, and then you're going to pull the tax-free stuff and then the after-tax stuff. Or maybe we're in really low tax rates, so you're going to pull more of the taxable stuff out and less of the tax-free. If you have those three distinct buckets, you're going to get to pick and choose, and odds are over a 20, 30, 40-year retirement, tax policy is going to change. And so your strategy also will need to adjust in real time as that happens.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things when we're working on this, we actually give numbers to this, is that we say, first of all, if you're below 25% combined tax rates, and when I say combined, I'm talking about both your federal and your state income tax. Yeah, I mean, Roth accounts make sense. And doing a Roth conversion probably does make a lot of sense. That 25 to 30% is kind of what we consider the gray zone. And then once your income tax rates are over 30%, you ought to consider, are there some benefits to taking the tax deferred, meaning taking a current year tax deduction? Now, here's the part about this. The whole logic behind what I just told you is because for a lot of folks, you may pay the highest taxes while you're earning money, while you're in your peak earning years. And then when you retire, especially if you're doing the 3-bucket strategy Bo talked about, you can manipulate legally your tax rates that you pay, and you're hoping that your tax rates are a lot lower. Now, if you're a glass half full on tax policy and you think rates are going to be substantially higher than they currently are, then maybe you can. I'll give you permission to, instead of 30% being your combined rate that you consider, maybe you can push that up to 35%. That's going to be more of your personal decision. I still think that you probably first, because there's two big questions. What's your income going to look like in retirement? Can you manipulate the tax code legally? And then second, what's your thoughts towards tax policy in the future? If you're very confident they're going to be substantially higher, then I give you permission to kind of push up a little higher on what is that Roth conversion threshold.
Again, it's a very individualized, personalized decision. And frankly, this is one of those that's a little more complicated. It's gotten more complicated over the years, even in terms of your ability to undo it or not undo it. So if you are thinking about those things, this is probably one of those great points in time where it makes sense to reach out to a professional advisor, to reach out to a tax advisor, to make sure you're making the decision well and not thinking about the unintended consequences.
Yeah, no doubt.